Hello, strangers on the internet. My name is Wesley Hall, and I'm here to help you build an anxiety eater. Now, you may be asking yourself, Wesley, that's me, what is an anxiety eater? And that's an excellent question. An anxiety eater is this little cardboard-like guys. They're cardboard structures. Normally, I make them out of cardboard, but you can make them out of anything. The idea and the intent of them is to have something that can sit on your shelf and almost be like a piggy bank for fears, anxieties, worries. But they're here, they're cardboard structures, and then they have this hole in the mouth here. So you would write your anxiety down, fold it up and from a small post-it note into here, and there you go. So the first thing you're going to need is cardboard. What I like to do is just go ahead and start with the flaps from a box. So this is a Home Depot box I think I had, and then just took the two longest flaps. You want two flaps. They'll decide your size here. And then there's a thing to note about cardboard, just kind of a nicer side of cardboard here, if you could see that. And like a little bit, this is the inside, the side they don't print on, is a little dingier. It's not terrible, but it's just like something to note. So you can even see here, you can see less of this grain here, or less of this, the stripes here, than if you look on this side. So something to keep in mind if you're also thinking about decorating it, because sometimes I will color them, paint them in fully like you've seen here, and then sometimes I'll just leave them cardboard based and just draw lines and stuff on them. And then here's the other thing about cardboard is this, let me get there, the corrugation here, these little guys here, that's going to help you decide how to bend. You know, that's how your cardboard's going to bend. And that is just going to be really a basic step in looking at in the future, if you want to build shapes that bend around. Like here, this rabbit has a nice curve to him, but you can kind of see is one piece. And what we're using there is the fact that it bends easier on this side than trying to bend against the grain. So like with the grain is, you can already see this. It naturally wants to bend like this, bending it against it like that is a little bit harder. All right, so where do we actually begin? So first, we're going to start with, like I said, our two flaps from boxes. We're going to take one flap and toss that one aside for now. We'll just take one and we'll go and cut it halfway through. And I'm just going to eyeball it. I never really long for exactness, but if you wanted to, you could pull out a ruler here. But I'm going to say this feels about like half. And so then we're just going to do our cut down. You can already see my cut's a little off, but that's okay. Yeah, and about 2 equal halves. So then I'm going to do the same with these two as well. And what I do is I just line it up here and I kind of cheat it and I go, that's good enough. And again, we don't have to be 100% precise. So now we have 4 pieces. So now I'm going to take my 4 roughly equal slice pieces and I'm going to pick out which ones my front and my back. Things I'm looking for here are just kind of some niceness in the paper. This feels like probably my cleanest side when I look at it. So I might make that my front. This is probably my second. I like also here that I'm going to paint it, but I know that some of the lighter colors of paint won't show through here, or will take a couple extra layers to get through this. So the fact that this doesn't have a lot of that in there is good. I also kind of like this idea that there might be writing here, so maybe I'll keep that and use that. Also, it's a great, like, oh, you know, like already I'm getting ideas that if like this is my creature's shape, then like this is the stomach here is a nice place to put that. So I'll put these off to the side. Now I have 2 more. One of these will be my side, so I'll cut it down this way, top and bottom. And then they'll go here. And then the other one I'll use for my top. So then I'll just make sure, since these are already the same width, I'll just need to cut it as the same length of whatever I cut this in half. This I'm going to use as my top because it's a little more wrinkly. This one I feel like is a pretty good one for my sides. And even though you can see where my cut went up here, it doesn't matter too much because what we can do is then cut it down later. And again, not everything needs to be a perfect fit because there's not perfect fits in this world. But boom. So there we go. We've got them about equal. They're a little off, but again, I think it just is going to add some kind of wonkiness and goofiness to the piece. So now here, the same thing. I know width-wise, this is going to be long enough since they're all from the same tab. So really all I need is 2 pieces that are just as wide. So it's going to share, it will be as wide as this is tall, if that makes sense. I'm probably saying that wrong, but this is the general idea. So then we'll... And already we can see we have a little bit of extra here. I'm going to keep this around because what we'll do is we'll add in face, eyes, and ears. Here you can kind of see they are extras, or, you know, like we were talking about the stomach just a minute ago. So here we can add all these, and this is, now you have this extra piece to kind of start with all of your rough cut extras. All right, so here I have all my pieces, 2 side pieces, 2 top pieces, top, bottom, front, and back. There. So I'm going to set aside my front piece for a while, for the moment being, and I'm going to glue all of these pieces together. What we'll need for that is hot glue gun, easy enough, and then we'll just do gluing. Here's already, I was about to make a mistake. I want this facing outside. Occasionally we'll get to this situation where here are pieces just a hair bigger. This is where I like to either use scissors and just kind of... Whoop. If you were more inclined to use rulers and measure, this is a great place where you would want to include or think about kind of inclusions and exclusions and all of that. But I am not that bright, and so instead we'll just do it this way. And again, also seeing, and also you can kind of see how, what's nice here again is that there's like a little bit of warp and give to the cardboard. So it doesn't, it's not mean about it. So it can kind of take a little bit. So we'll go with that. And I'm going to take a little bit here and just cut off some side ones. These are going to be, what we can do here is these are little stints. Right now, these are pretty secure because the shape isn't too big. But if we had a bigger shape, we would want just something that could hold a little bit more of the weight. These are just like the same you see underneath shelves. So we could add in a few of these here. As well. This cardboard I picked out for this is a little weird, so I'm just going to cut it down. And they don't have to be super precise. To me, they just give it a little bit more support, because right here it's a little flimsy, but here it will make it a little more firm in it. Now, normally we go ahead and flip on that last one here, but I'm not quite ready for it. So there's a few things I'm noting here. I think I want to cut this down because it just pokes out a little too much for me. So cool. Yeah, a lot of the things are kind of just like vibe checks. How are you feeling about it? How's it going in your head? Are you... I like this a little more, I think, for this layout. And I've more than once just have been like, this is the thing this is the layout I don't want to do, and then I take it and I will glue it the opposite way, you know. And I don't think anyone else cares. I think it only matters to me. Okay, so I got my front. Good. I haven't glued it down yet. So the insides are there. I put the little stints in. These just help keep some firmness here. Since we'll have like arms pressured on there, just want to make sure that these stay firm. So this helps kind of that. And you could put a lot more in there. For larger structures, it's more important, but for this, it's fine. I like the wonkiness of this line here a lot. So I'm hoping not to lose that when I add on this front piece. And here I am just playing with different shapes. And you can see I'm using scrap cardboard and pieces of paper to kind of draw out what I want. You know, I kind of played with the idea that this could just be a little head and not a whole little guy. And then I started playing around with like, oh, like we had talked about at the beginning with that shape covering it up. So maybe it was like, oh, now he's like a little robot. Maybe he's mad. Maybe he has a wide mouth. You can really get lost in here. I eventually make the decision to make that little mouth, and you can see where I've drawn that on. Playing around with this idea of like diodes or like horns on the top. But I end up just going with this. And here also, you don't have to make any of those final decisions. You can kind of keep those in the back of your mind, but I didn't want to get stuck in the process, so I was like, okay, just keep it a little simple, a little slot mouth that I cut out here with the X-Acto knife. Okay, so now that we have all the base down, so now what we're going to do is glue this to this, and we'll have the majority of our anxiety eater ready. Soon you see like a story starts to come out, like, right, this feels like maybe beat up old robot guy, and here I'm adding in just some glue to cover up this hole. So the hot glue also does take up space, unlike some glues, like which will dry really thin. The hot glue will always dry with some layers, so there's always fun to play with in the layer of the texture of how that registers. So careful not to burn yourself. Even down here, like these are gonna feel kind of like, to me, spotty welds that someone has done to keep this little guy together. And I will paint them like so. Okay, so I've put glue on there. I'm going to let it dry. But I wanted to talk about kind of other than these paints that we'll use, we can use some Apple Barrel Craft paints. You could also use spray paint, temper paint. I've used all of them. They all seem to hold up just about as well. I like the craft paints because they're cheap. You usually get these for like $1 or less for something that size, and it prints it pretty decent. And then I also like to use these paint pens. These are just the Sharpie acrylic ones, markers, but Posca's, the grabby pins, any of those work really well. These are all just different ones I've grabbed at different art stores. I'm thinking like yellows and orange for kind of like a screen on this part. And this is where, like previously we were talking about using this side. It's a little cleaner, and this side has the stripes. But I think I like the idea. Maybe we take this and we can kind of see what it looks like here. And we act as though this is a little screen that has his eyes. So he's just, to me, this little old robot. Oh my gosh. Where this is like yellow eyes, I think maybe we bring those smaller, and then we can even give him little eyes on there. We can draw them on. This is also, again, perfect with that like pixelation idea. And he's just like, maybe he's just been repaired so many times. He's this little beat up guy who's just been repaired so many times. And now he just holds anxieties. Do we put it there? No, I like it, I think, up here a little bit more. Okay, so it's about 2 layers of that, and I used just a little pin here. And I did the yellow and the orange on the outside just to give it some depth. And this pin is like a really good example of like what you could do if you didn't want to get past this stage of decorating what I would do is something like this, where like this already feels like you can already see he has so much life from this. So we could come in here and I would trace around these kind of like sides, and build up this like layer here to trace that as well. And then just you could do that. And usually I like to use like black, white, and one color. Just trying to make this part look really pixely. You have a fun little pixely face, like the idea that the eyes could change. But we will paint this gray and then we'll glue that on. But first, do some arms and legs for the guy. So I think 2 up, yeah. And then leg-wise, I'm just gonna have him have his little legs kick out, which again will give a little bit of depth. Push these up, one of these legs up. Here we can look too, where we're kind of looking at that. Like this might be a good spot. I would probably glue it, but we could really just. That's fun already. Yeah. So here we have like his little legs will kind of kick down here. They're not really useful. They're just kind of aesthetics. And then we'll add in little arms here. I think up like adds this like really interesting nature of him. All right, so I glued down this guy's legs so you can kind of see his face is gonna fall off. It's okay. You can see he'll sit up like this. And then I have the arms. So a note that's different, because the arms are gonna sit here on him, on his body, I gave it just like 2 layers where I cut the same shape. The benefit here is that there's just more place for the glue to hold. But you can also see here I could do these as horns or like really high arms, almost dog ears at this point. So here's also another thing where I will make these things and I'll play, you know, like, is this funnier? Or is this interesting? If you had like super mega pads, you know, is this, oh, that's almost nice where he's like, Shrugobot. I think I'm going to stick with this though. I like the idea that like in his world, you might put an anxiety in and then like pull his arm down and something happens, right? So we will see. Ooh, it's raining outside. Now that I have one on, you can see they're still kind of loose. So this is where I use just my glue as kind of like almost caulk or like a sealant, you know? I mean, I guess it's glue. I guess it's a sealant. But here, so that's why on these they'll stick. But I like to do 2 because one will just be super flimsy, and then anytime you bump into it, it just seems to fall. So now we have arms glued down, legs. So he is ready to be painting. Here's kind of where you will be at soon. I think now you can see the vision. Now you can kind of see the dreams. All right, let's start painting. I'm just going to take this country gray, and then I have just a cheap paintbrush here from Dollar Tree or wherever. Nothing big. You can see it's kind of beat up. It's still got some old paint in it, but works enough. And then we'll just go ahead and paint it. I'm just going to skip over this part, but I'm just going to apply flat layers, kind of dip in. I don't want too much on the brush, but enough. And then, yeah, just apply. This is when I put on a podcast I like or a show I enjoy and put that on in the background. And yeah, and oh, here's important. If you start painting, like at first, you can see one, it will dry a separate color here. It'll dry a little brighter or darker, depending. But you can also see, you can kind of still see the cardboard coming through here. I'm not sure, you might be picking up too much of a shine there, but we're going to let the first one dry. You want the first thing to be a little streaky, and then you just go back over it again. The acrylic paint dries super quick, so it's never like worth stressing, and it will only take just a few minutes to do. Also, apologies if you can hear my dog in the background. It is storming here, and she doesn't care for that. Boom, he's back now. And so we have a flat color on him here. And now, whoop, we put his little visor in the vision. Now he looks less like a box, a badly glued cardboard box together. And he looks like a little guy. You can kind of see where he's going. We're going to take a really, really dry brush. Let's see. How does that feel? Get the brush as dry as possible. And then we just want a little bit of paint on it. It's not a ton. You can kind of see. And then, oops. You kind of just want to dry brush up here. Just gonna add some dimensionality into there, where we're still gonna be able to see. This is great for a metal effect, but you can also just see already kind of adds a little bit of texture here. Okay, interrupting the gaming montage here to show you that I'm also using what is called a wash, which is where you load up your paintbrush with a lot of water and just a little bit of paint, and then you can kind of dab it off. That's usually used by like miniature painters when they're painting in between spaces, but here we can use it to kind of get this rustic effect and really aiming just to make this character look like he's been beat up. I also mix some of that gray and black together to get this darker gray, and I'm doing kind of the same thing where I'm just putting it on a little bit so it looks like it was paint that maybe has faded at one time, and adding it in there just to add in some more texture, some more beat upness to kind of add to the story of this character who has been lost at space for a lifetime, it seems. Anyways, back to the montage. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, our finished anxiety eater. I think if anything I would do differently, I might add in some more like bolts or little rivets or something in there to give him a little more texture, a little more places. I kept talking about adding in diodes. I didn't end up doing it. But, I think I'm really happy with how he came out. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully you had a good time. And hopefully you have a great day. I'll see you next time. Like, comment, subscribe. Check you later.